All right, it's time for another episode of Goalhorns and Fight Songs. I'm your host, Wes. That's my co-host, Mike. Mike, what's up?
Not a whole lot. What's up with you?
Oh, not much. Just enjoying some Western sweeps, and we should probably mention that we didn't have a show last week because somebody wasn't feeling well, which makes up for when I wasn't feeling well a couple months ago. So evens out, I suppose.
Yeah, got boosted. Hit me hard.
Oh yeah, I guess that's yeah. So you didn't really get sick. You just had some effects from the booster shot.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, Western coming off of two sweeps or actually I think three sweeps in a row. 6 straight wins after suffering that sweep to Denver.
Western's a hot team. UMD, not as much. We got swept
Hey,
after a split with North Dakota.
you guys have cooled off a little bit since that. Was it 3 straight shutouts for
Yep.
Fanti?
Yep. Three straight shutouts and
You,
and
did you
yeah, then a sweep.
did you guys end up playing your backup goalie this weekend? I know there was like some tweets or messages about that being a possibility with either Fanti not feeling well or being something going on there.
I believe so. Fanti entered the COVID protocol, so Ben Pat had to uh, step in. By the way, two-time NCHC Movember winner, Ben Pat. Uh, he had to step in and play, and I think he played both nights. I didn't. I just looked at the final score on Saturday. I wasn't quite paying attention. I listened on Friday because not able to get that non-conference game away. Could not watch that on NCHC TV. Um, but yeah, I think he played solid enough. He's a fifth year senior, hasn't really played, just kind of been on the team, growing sick mustaches, finally getting the chance. Don't think the team helped him out as much as they probably could have.
I'm gonna go with no. They did not. I mean, they definitely tried a little bit more on Friday, considering that was a 4-5 game.
Yeah, and I think we did hold a lead, and then all of a sudden it just kind of all collapsed and carried over to Saturday.
I mean, either way, those are two teams that kind of they know each other a little bit. I think there's a little bit of a rivalry there, isn't there? Going back to the W between those two, or
But between Northern and UMD,
yeah.
not that I'm aware of. I think
Or
they've
was
always kind of been.
oh, you know what? Northern might have been
Separate.
in the CCHA. Now that I
I
think about
believe
it,
they were the CCHA.
yeah, which makes more
I know
sense. I'm pretty sure that's what it was because
Tech
I'm pretty sure we played
was.
them.
Yeah, I think Tech was
Yeah,
maybe for a little bit.
Ben played Friday, and
I'm not quite sure who would have played Saturday except for Ben, unless they got some kid off the club team and said, "Hey, you want to play a D1 game for a day?"
yeah, the offense struggled a little bit on Saturday too. Yep, Ben played both games of the back to back.
Yeah, and Ryan he'll be back after COVID protocol. I'm not quite sure what the NCHC standard is and what his situation is, um, but it he should be back. And that's the one nice thing about college hockey is you do play the series, but you have the week apart. It's kind of like the NFL,
Yeah,
where if you might miss one game, but then you can be back for the next series, or miss one series but be back for the next one. Um,
right. And I
which I'm
mean,
I'm hoping he's back.
not that it I think not that it was a bad series to miss because it wasn't a conference series. I think those are kind of more important. Really, when you're looking at the broad feel of the year, you want to make sure you're playing strong conference games. I mean, you do want to play your non-conference games strong too, because they count more for the pairwise or just the same for the pairwise and all that stuff. But that first step is winning your conference, making your conference tournament, and hopefully winning that too, and then going to the big one. So
Yeah, and at least if you show strong in the conference tournament and have a good seed, that's going to be more than beating Northern Michigan, who was unranked, and UMD was number one for a short time.
Right. So let's go to Western. They're doing what they need to do. I think it was kind of a surprise to sweep St. Cloud. I don't know that it was necessarily that big of a surprise to beat St. Lawrence, but I was looking through it, and St. Lawrence actually made a pretty good run a couple years ago. They were a Frozen Four team, or Frozen, at least in the turn. They were a tournament team that made it to a decent spot. So they seem to have fallen off a little bit here lately, which I think a lot of places are still kind of recuperating from the year that COVID hit. So what was that, the 2019-2020 season that got cut short there at the end? Mm-hmm. Then the weird season that was last year. Some conferences are still doing weird stuff this year where they're either not playing full teams, or they're not playing a full schedule, or not playing at all. I think there's still a couple schools that aren't playing at all. So, and it'll take a while before everybody's back to full strength as far as that goes, I think.
Yeah, and we even talked about, I don't know if it's always been like this, but the ECAC schools, it's just weird because typically you think, and part of it's they're all close by, but you typically figure one weekend, one school, that's who you're playing. But other than the non-conference weekends, the ECAC, they're playing a different team every night, and they play a lot of home and away series, but they're all so compact,
right?
Which is something that I probably won't understand. Like, I kind of do, but at the same time, it's like I like the whole back-to-back against one school. It just makes it more fun.
I wonder what really has like a bigger advantage, because you got to think, like, if one of those schools can go on a solid run, right, and they make it to, they have to be better, or they might be better suited for the tournament, because the tournament's one game, one team, and so they're used to kind of preparing for multiple teams in a single week, but and they're not maybe they're not necessarily like beating each other up the way the NCHC does, because I mean that season's a grind, and it might be a little bit more difficult for NCHC teams. Well, I guess I can't really say it's more difficult because, what was it, 4 out of the last 6 years, the national title has been an NCHC team.
Yeah, it'd be 4 if you don't count the 2020 season. Yeah. 4 out of the last 6 years have been NCHC, because there's North Dakota, Denver, UMD, no tournament, and then it could have been another one with St. Cloud losing last year to UMass.
Right. Yeah, UMass came out of nowhere and decided to beat everybody in the NCHC because they took out UMD to get to St. Cloud, I believe.
So, that they did.
So, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of a toss-up, but, thinking about it that way, like, those teams prepare every week for 2 different teams, whereas our teams prepare to play 2 hard-fought games with the same team, so I don't know. Interesting way to look at it and figure out what's actually going on there. Western moved into second place all by itself this last weekend with a little help from other teams. Had St. Cloud been able to complete their sweep, it would have been a third place tie, but they were at least able to keep North Dakota in check a little bit and take 1 from them. North Dakota still sitting in first place with 18 points in the NCHC standings.
And I think that'll... was that series in North Dakota, or was it in St. Cloud?
This one was at St. Cloud. They were at St. Cloud.
Okay. Because I was just thinking, North Dakota played at home against UMD, and there was that split. I think once they start going on the road more, they're going to get more splits than sweeps.
And
than normal. And St. Cloud's just a tough team.
true. And they've got North Dakota still has all 4 games against Western to be played this year still. So, this conference always seems to come down to like the last couple weekends. There's always 1 or 2 teams fighting it out for that last number 1 spot. I think this is the first time all year that Ethan Frank has been held pointless in an entire series.
I know you messaged me that, and I was actually very, very surprised to hear that.
Because on Friday night, 12 different Broncos picked up a point, including Brandon Bussey got an assist on one of the goals. When Western was able to double up Miami 6-3, and then 11 Broncos picked up points in the Saturday game. But yeah, I think it's the first time in back-to-back games that Ethan's been held without a point, because usually somewhere he'll pick up either a goal or an assist somewhere along the way. But it's good to see that the other 27 players on the team, or something like that, whatever the number is on a given, I think it's 20 is dressed on a given day. So the other 19 players were able to step up and contribute and come away with some wins.
Yeah, and that helps showing the depth that you have as a team now, instead of just relying. Yeah, it helps to have a stud like Ethan on your team, but having that depth, and okay, maybe he doesn't have it quite going this weekend, we can step up and we can get a sweep. That helps.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that's been nice about UMD is we have a couple really good players, but no superstar. I mean, I guess you could say Perunovic a couple of years ago was the superstar winning the Hobie Baker. But as far as forwards go, it's all 4 lines. All 4 lines can score. All 4 lines are going to keep rolling, and it's a team game. And the depth is what hurts you.
Yeah. We did have a significant lead in the faceoff circle, though. Paul Washy was able to win 19 out of his 23 faceoffs, and that's a kid who's won faceoffs all 5 years he's been at Western. He's extremely good in the faceoff circle. And anytime you can win that many faceoffs, you're putting your team in the right direction, whether it's winning a faceoff in the defensive zone and able to get the puck out and move down the ice and clear it out so you're not putting a lot of pressure on your goaltender, or winning one in the offensive zone and able to put that offensive pressure right back on the other team. So it's good to have a weapon like that who can win faceoffs for you pretty much when you need them.
And that's an unreal percentage that it gives the coaches confidence. Hey, okay, big spot in the game, late in the game, just throw him out there. He's going to win it.
Yeah. I mean, the Washer family had a lot to celebrate because both players, both Tim and Paul, were on the score sheet Saturday night. Tim got a goal. I believe Paul had a goal. I know that he had one that made the top plays of the week at number 2. I believe that one was from Friday night. So definitely a lot to celebrate in that household this weekend.
And probably would have been number 1 had
that
St. Cloud not
the lacrosse toss goal.
Mm-hmm.
The exaggerated Michigan. Man, I'll tell you what. I looked at that replay a bunch to see if it was under the crossbar, and I guess like depending on the way you're looking at it, the way the puck moves, it has to be under the crossbar because he hits the bottom of the top of the net.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, heck of a play to pull off in the middle of a scrum like that in a series between those two teams. Because I think it was a few years ago. It might have been 2018. I want to say. Not Ronnie. Wade Allison hit one against Miami for Western. And then he tried another one in the playoff series between Western and Colorado College at Lawson.
That's right. I remember you talking about that a few years ago, like trying to hit 2 in one season.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, the fact that he had the cojones to try and pull that off in the middle of a playoff game was pretty impressive, and he didn't miss it by much. And it would have blown the roof off that place to have seen that happen, because the one that he hit against Miami was away. So unless you were watching the game on NCHC TV or whatever, the only way you found out about it was to watch Twitter or listen to the game on the radio. So, and I think there's a difference between seeing that hit on TV and seeing it done live. So it definitely would have generated a pretty big pop.
Oh, absolutely. People would have just lost their mind. The Lost and Lunatics might have stormed the ice just because.
Just because. Yeah, looking at some of the stats right now, Western is leading the NCHC in goals for in conference games, with St. Cloud being a close second. But Western's sitting at 30 goals scored in conference play, and St. Cloud has 27. I mean, when you have the leading goal scorer in all of the NCAA, you're kind of hoping that you're leading, or at least near the top in your conference as far as goals are too. So
you would hope so that the rest of your teammates were contributing to what you were doing. That it surprises me a little bit that Western's at the top, but it doesn't, just because not necessarily quite as deep, but St. Cloud, they're always high powered, always high flying, high scoring. It's you're gonna have to do something to slow them down, and just hope that they only score 2 instead of 4.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of where Western kind of sits. Like we kind of had to be high scoring with the fact that we kind of give up 2 goals, at least 2. Almost, it seems like 2 goals a game, and I think Brandon's average is right around 2 goals per game. So if you're gonna be hoping that your goalie's holding the other team to just 2, you got to be able to put up 3 a night in order to win games, and hope that maybe there's some games where you only give up 1, or like has happened twice this year, Brandon stops everything and you put a 0 up on the board for the other team. So the offense is coming in handy right now. Let's see. Denver wrapping up a big stack on the players of the week. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but there's three Denver players up there this week.
I actually did not notice that.
Which is kind of a surprise considering the shootout that was North Dakota versus St. Cloud.
I did find it kind of funny because they put out the first month of Players of the Month, and Fanti got Goalie of the Month, and then immediately went on the COVID protocol list. It was like, hey, good job.
Oh, for November.
Can't play. Yeah.
Yeah. What else was there? But yeah, Denver had the forward of the week in Brett Stapley. St. Cloud picked up defenseman of the week in Nick Perbix. Denver had the goaltender of the week in Magnus Chirona. And they also had the rookie of the week in Jack Devine. So
it actually kind of amazes me that Perbix is still playing, because when I first moved down to the cities, they have a tournament that's Grand Rapids, Edina, Eden Prairie, and Elk River. And the Grand Rapids announcer, I had done some games with him before. His partner couldn't make it down, so he asked me to cover that Thanksgiving tournament, and Perbix was playing in that tournament. So it feels like it was longer ago than it maybe was, or he was just playing that young at Elk River. But he's been a good player for a lot of years at St. Cloud.
Yeah, there's definitely some names that feel like they've been around forever, and especially more so this year. But I think that's just a matter of fifth year seniors coming back for an extra
Mm-hmm.
game because of COVID allowing it. So the number of guys you've been you've been in this conference for forever. How old are you? Has definitely felt increased this year.
Yeah, it really has, and even I think there's a couple more. I'm pulling up the St. Cloud roster now because there were a couple guys that played in that tournament, and I think I had only been here uh, just a couple months, and they were playing as juniors and seniors, and I've been down here 7 years or so. It's like, wait, how old are you guys?
Um, Western is also, I believe, tied their highest ranking, and they're off to one of their best starts in a long, long while, sitting at 12-4 right now, ranked 4 as far as the USCHO poll is concerned. So it's definitely a good season to be a Bronco, for sure. I mean, my opinion is they should at least be third. I haven't seen too much about Minnesota State or Quinnipiac to really have an opinion as far as those two teams being ahead of Western. I believe Minnesota State lost to Michigan early in the year in the Icebreaker tournament.
Yes, they did
I believe in the finals, wasn't it? Because you guys played Michigan the first night, or did you guys make it to the final?
no, we did not make it to the final.
So yeah, you lost to Michigan the first night, so it must have been the finals that it was
Yeah,
Michigan
yeah,
versus
we did
State.
lose. Because we then played Providence, and that's who Mankato beat.
Yeah. So I
We
don't
got
know.
destroyed by Michigan.
So maybe I feel like it should be more of a toss up between Quinnipiac and Western for number 1 and 2, and Michigan and Minnesota State more 3 and 4. Probably, if I were to look at it and pick, it would probably be, personally, it would be Western 1, Quinnipiac 2, Michigan 3, Minnesota State 4. If I had to just go off my gut or my heart / gut, because I'd put Western at 1 because they're my team, but I don't know much about the Quinnipiac team, other than they're 12-1-3.
Yeah, and I know nothing about Quinnipiac.
I believe they played North Dakota earlier this year, I think, already.
I don't know if they did.
I want to say that they did. But let's see.
They played BC. They did play, and they split with North Dakota.
Okay. So, I mean, Western hasn't played North Dakota yet for there to be a common opponent. But maybe that bumps them. Maybe that's keep them at 2. So for me, it would be Western 1, Quinnipiac 2, Michigan at 3, Minnesota State at 4. It's because it's hard for me. It's hard for me to put a team that got beat and only won in overtime on kind of a controversial call to send it to overtime ahead of the team that they lost to and then beat in overtime. Like, I can't put Michigan ahead of Western, other than Western's my team and Michigan's not.
Right.
But I'm not gonna put. I mean, Duluth and Western, they split, and it was a really good matchup. But Duluth's also lost to Michigan, and they just got swept, so I can't put them ahead of either one of those two teams either.
Yeah, the only thing for Mankato versus Michigan would, to me, would be like, what's their strength of conference? But both are not that strong, other than the top couple between the new CCHA and the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I believe that's what Mankato's in, the new CCHA.
I mean, really, our worst loss were the 2 losses to Denver. When Denver was ranked, I believe, in the teens. But even then, like, since then, Denver's moved up to 11. They're on a tear. I believe they've won like 6 or 8 straight, something like that. They've won, like, since splitting or getting swept by North Dakota, whatever that was. And then going on to sweep us, they've been on a little bit of a run.
Mm-hmm.
So Denver's playing very well. I mean, there might be, but they've also played kind of, they played Arizona State 4 times and beat them 4 times. Like,
which that helps just your record a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, but if you look at like the games Western's played, we've played the number 1 team in the country twice, beat them once. We split with who was number 3 in Minnesota, Duluth. We swept number 2. Like, I mean, if you're comparing wins to wins, it's a hard case to make that Western hasn't had the best wins so far of anybody in the country. And then you look at the losses for Michigan, and it's 1 to a lower ranked Western Michigan. I think they were in the teens. 2 overtime losses to a team that I don't know what they were ranked when. I think they were like 13 or 14 when Notre Dame won both overtime games.
I think so.
They have a loss to Minnesota, and a loss to Wisconsin. I think since Minnesota has kind of moved up into the rankings, but Wisconsin's still not in the top 20.
Yeah,
Like,
and even Minnesota, you look at their record, they're not
10-8.
great. Yeah, that's not that impressive.
So I mean, like, when you're relying on either just the name of the place or you're looking at the talent pool of the school, I don't know that it's a fair assessment of what's happening and where they should be ranked. And I'm not necessarily smart enough to do the statistical analysis or figure out the right way to numerically rank teams, but just based on the eye test and kind of what I've seen and what I've taken from games and things like it, there's no way they can be in the top 3 at least.
No. I was just thinking, earlier when you were talking about Denver, how Denver's been on a bit of a tear. I had to look up, and I was going to say they haven't played Colorado College yet, and Colorado College is actually playing pretty good. I mean, they shut out number 10 Omaha this weekend.
Yeah, they split with Omaha. I believe they split with Omaha, didn't they? Or did they take?
They did split, but they shut them out 4-0 on Saturday.
Okay.
Because I know I messaged you about that.
Yep.
Before we were playing Chella, and it was like, holy crap! They beat them pretty good.
Yeah, because I think when I last looked at that game, it was like 1-0, and then, I think there was a couple big. Was there a big penalty in that game? I think that's what kind of busted open the North Dakota St. Cloud game. So there was a big 5-minute major Friday night that St. Cloud was able to capitalize on, and got them rolling to their 8-1 win on Friday.
Let's see if there was.
But I think there was like a couple penalties either late in the first period or near the end of the first period that kind of helped get Colorado College out of the first period with that 1-0 lead, and then they were able to build on it throughout the rest of the game.
Oh, here we go.
To win 4-0. And then, what was the other? There was another pretty solid game. I don't remember what it was. I mean,
there was a misconduct.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking of.
Holding and then a misconduct.
That game got a little chippy.
Mm-hmm.
The Western Miami game got a little chippy too at one point, but I mean, that's an old rivalry that Western's been able to earn the upper hand of in the last couple of years, and so not only do you have the hockey rivalry between those two schools, but then you have the state rivalry between Michigan and Ohio. So that one's always going to have some feels to it.
I'm just looking at. I'm laughing at the end of the second period. There were no penalties in third of CC Omaha. At the end of the second, 1959.7. 2-minute minor for roughing, and I don't know the players, but there's Danny Waite, 2-minute minor for roughing, Kirby Proctor, 2-minute minor for roughing, some Johnny Tychonik got a 5-minute major for face masking, and then Taylor Ward got 2-minute minor for interference.
Yeah.
So the end of that second period was just kind of a
scrum.
Yeah, let's all just have at her, see what happens.
Which I mean, it happens from time to time. I think as emotions pick up throughout the game, and you see something you don't necessarily like, it's gonna boil over at some point. And
and I think
there's big bodies being thrown around, especially in the NCHC, and
I feel like you see it more early in the year than you do later in the year, which would be contrary to popular belief, where you're seeing a team for the third and fourth times. But as you're seeing, depending on when you're seeing them, if you're seeing them for the third and fourth time, it might be in the last 2-3 weeks of the season, and you're battling for that playoff spot. So you don't want to put your team in a position to lose and potentially lose, especially in the middle, that home playoff game. If you're a 4 seed, a 3 seed or a 4 seed, you could end up getting passed by the 5 and 6, and then all of a sudden you're having to go on the road for the first series.
I think it depends on the teams too. I mean, there is that whole cycle of only playing one team once that they go through, and so I think even if it's the last game of the year, if it's North Dakota versus St. Cloud or Minnesota Duluth versus St. Cloud, I mean, those are always a big rivalry game, so it's going to have that emotion, even if it's the end of the year.
Right.
Western used to do it with Michigan State and Ferris all the time, where if it was the last game, it didn't matter if it was the first game of the year, if it was the last game of the year, they were going to play hard, and if somebody did or said the wrong thing, it was going to be a smash mouth game, and it wasn't over until both teams were off the ice after the handshake line. So
yeah, it definitely does depend, and I think the crowds play a major factor in that too, because the crowds are so amped up to beat, especially North Dakota. When you're playing in Duluth, you want to beat North Dakota, want to shut those fans up. And I've been to UMD North Dakota game, and yeah, you really do want to shut those North Dakota fans up. And I think the players do feed off of that. Yes, they're focused in the game, but in between periods, during TV timeouts, sometimes there's not a whole lot said, and then they kind of see how into it the crowd's getting. Like, okay, we got to beat the living crap out of these guys, and if they do one thing wrong, we got to show our fans that we care about them and we care about this team. We're not going to let them push us around.
Right. I think that pretty much wraps up the last couple of weeks. We can, do a little bit of a look ahead to this weekend. Western has Omaha coming to visit. Denver and Duluth in Minnesota. That should be a pretty good game there. North Dakota traveling to Colorado College. And Miami has a weird schedule this week. They only play one game, and it's on Sunday. and they are at Mercyhurst because they have a split series with them that will wrap up after the new year in Miami or in Oxford at Miami.
That's kind of really odd.
Western did it a couple times. I'm trying to remember. We had a split series with, I believe, Notre Dame at one point, where they played on 2 Tuesdays with like a week in between. And I think they had another series like that a couple years ago with Bowling Green, maybe. Because I know there's one year where we started with like 6 games, or like, no, was it 7 games? Or 5 games in 10 days or something. Like, it was something stupid that they ended up playing because of the way that the schedule worked out. And they had they had like a Tuesday game, or they had the weekend games and then they had a Tuesday game. It was something weird, like the way they did it. And it was, the only reason I know that is because I went to the Tuesday game before, or I went to one of the Tuesday games before my wedding, because one of them was that week.
And I think that could be part of it, especially if it was with Notre Dame, would be the Big Ten scheduling, because the Big Ten scheduling makes no sense to me.
I think when they did it with Notre Dame, it was either they had just gotten out of the CCHA, or it was actually a CCHA series, and it was just something to do with like who had what holiday tournament or something planned. Like, I want to say it was something more along those lines for sure.
Yeah.
And then because the Big Ten has been doing a weird schedule like the last couple of years where they've started introducing like Thursday games or something.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden I'll turn on, I'll get home and I'll be scrolling through the TV guide, and all of a sudden Big Ten hockey, and it's like the third period where they started at 3:00, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Hold on, why are you guys even playing this right now? Like, nobody is at half your student sections in class still.
Right. I mean, even I just see Brown and Boston College, they played tonight, so definitely interesting the way they're starting to expand the college hockey schedule.
It is interesting. I don't like it, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I don't like it either. Weekends are for hockey. Hockey's for weekends. Stop. Also, while we're on the discussion of, scheduling things, don't put rivalry games in the middle of the week. I don't care what sport it is. Rivalries belong on weekends, not in the middle of the week.
They do.
Please and thank you.
I'm not in charge, but I will pass that along to the appropriate parties if I'm ever able to figure out who is actually in charge.
I don't know who's in charge of it either, but it's stupid. It's dumb. It doesn't build your brand any. You're not going to say that you were able to put more butts in seats, because guess what? It's in the middle of the week. People still have work to do. I'm sorry. Whether they're stay-home jobs or not, I'm pretty sure they still have to check it. Some places still have to check in at a certain time of day. So all you're really doing is hurting local businesses just because your game was on TV and more people might have been able to stay home and watch your game. But it ruins the atmosphere of the game. It ruins the look of the game on TV. It definitely takes some of the student interaction away from it. If it's a college game, like it's just a bad look, and I hate it. Especially when it's a rivalry game.
Yeah.
Like you're telling me that if you put Michigan State on a random Wednesday, that would be a big thing to watch? No.
No, there's plenty of other things people are doing.
Yeah. So I don't, even if it's a smaller rivalry or a smaller school rivalry, like those rivalries mean just as much to those two schools as the big ones do to everybody else. So stop it. Stop it with your nonsense. It's a bad look, and I don't like it. Who put that St. Cloud North Dakota game on Tuesday night. Who's watching that?
Right.
Hey, maybe it gets more eyes because there's.
Probably the people in Grand Forks because there's nothing else.
But did you know that Brown and BC had played today?
No, I had no idea.
No, didn't think so. And also, how about don't promote, third or weekday games and then put them on weird channels like ESPNU or some weird local affiliate.
Why not just put them on ESPN 8?
Right.
I mean, everybody has that.
So it's just bad. College weekday games are bad, no matter what sport. I mean, I get it. Like basketball, you have to do it because of how many games basketball plays. Mm-hmm. But it's just bad and silly and nonsensical.
It's at least, kind of the way they do it. ACC is kind of big on this night, so you can plan around that. Big Ten is big on this night. Like, I know, to switch, Gopher basketball plays Michigan State first Big Ten conference game tomorrow night for basketball.
Yeah.
That's just the way that you have to do it, just to get the kids rest, a little practice time, travel time, but there are a lot more games.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, I understand it to a certain degree, but like when you're looking at when you also work in an industry that sees the difference between a weekend game and a weekday game, like it makes no sense.
Yeah.
And I mean, once as a student and now once as an alumni, I've literally watched the biggest rivalry game that the school I support has be on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, respectively. Like, why would you do that? And then, like I said, working in a bar, I've seen on a weekend where that could be a $20,000 day go to a $2,000 day if you're lucky because it's in the middle of the week and people are just not going out to a bar.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if they have no interest in going to the game, they're not going to be in the area because, no.
Yeah.
It's a cold Wednesday in November. Calm down. Like, nobody wants to go do that.
Yeah.
So, just some food for thought for people who make schedules and probably will never see this, but if you see this and you make a sports schedule and you put rivalry games during the week, just know that you're an awful person and nobody likes you and you have no friends, and that's why you make terrible decisions like that.
If you're higher up, if you're a youth person, well, you don't have a choice. Proud of you for supporting youth sports.
Yeah, whatever. You can try to put jelly on that turd sandwich I just laid out there, but I don't think it's happening.
Hey, good cop, bad cop.
Let's see. Outside of Western Omaha, I think the Denver, Minnesota, Duluth series should be pretty good.
I think so. And I think we're planning on going to the Saturday game. UMD is doing their teddy bear toss on Friday, but would not be able to make it up there in time from the cities. But good for them that they are doing the teddy bear toss. Hopefully they get it out of the way sooner than later, and they don't have to make the announcement, hey, by the way, after the second period, if we haven't scored, we're going to toss the teddies on the ice.
I want to say that usually it's during I think Western does theirs during the first intermission.
I'm not quite sure when.
I believe that's the norm, I think. St. Cloud has the week off, so good for them, I suppose. They can heal up and rest up after their big battle with North Dakota.
Congratulations. You have the week off.
Yeah. North Dakota and Colorado College, I think we both kind of assume North Dakota should be able to come away with potentially a couple wins there, but
yeah, you never know because CC was able to.
They forced overtime with Duluth earlier this year.
We won that shootout.
Yeah.
And they split with Omaha.
They split with Omaha and got a shutout. So
scrappy enough team that's.
I think a split is definitely possible, but
Yeah, if you let them hang around, all of a sudden you end up being the Minnesota Vikings and losing to a winless team.
right. It's hard to
Not
win
that
them
I'm
all,
bitter.
but I feel like it's a lot easier to lose them all than it is to win them all. But yeah, I think North Dakota's probably going to come away with a sweep there. If a team sweeps, it's going to be North Dakota that gets a sweep. But
Yeah, I think so.
A split, it would not be surprising either.
I wouldn't be surprised with a split. I think North Dakota is the team that would sweep.
And honestly, Denver and Minnesota Duluth is such a toss up. Like those games, that's going to be a really good series. Whoever watches that series is going to be in for a really, really good series, I think, honestly.
And that.
Both teams are playing well. Well, we're playing well.
Yeah.
They were opposite ends of the spectrum last weekend. Denver getting this sweep and putting a hurt on Arizona State, and Duluth suffering a couple hard knock losses to Northern Michigan there. But overall, I mean, think, two good teams.
Yeah, two pretty good teams, and then that's an old WCHA rivalry, and not too far removed from an NCHC rivalry when Denver beat UMD in the national championship game just a few years ago. So there isn't as much bad blood between the fans and the players as the closer proximity, but I think it does still. Obviously, Coach Sandlin, he remembers that. There are a lot of fans that remember that, and we just haven't liked Denver for quite a while.
Right. And I mean, Duluth has quite a bit to play for, both on and off the ice. You know, their goalie situation right now is in a weird place. They do have Fanti, but they're missing Stayskal, and he's got his personal battle that he's dealing with that, you know, came out not too long ago, that he's fighting testicular cancer. So, you know, present thoughts to him, and hope that he can come out on the other side, prevail through that, and potentially get back on the ice. You know, we've seen NHL players who fought through similar situations and make it back to playing. So there's definitely a path that can be followed there a little bit, I think. And, you know, it would be good to see him back out on the ice as just a hockey fan in general. And
yeah, and just for I know his cousin is Adam Johnson, who played for UMD, and I played summer tennis with him. And then growing up, I think it's his oldest brother he was a defenseman at Dartmouth. And I saw him playing tennis growing up and him playing hockey, and a bruiser, just a tough defenseman. And then I'd played tennis against his sister in the summertime in various tournaments, and she's one tough woman in her own right. So I think he's got the right family genes to buckle down and fight his testicular cancer and beat it and be back on the ice even this year, which that he says that's his plan, and I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah. I mean, there's still quite a bit of season left, so I could definitely be in the cards there. So yeah, I think if Minnesota Duluth can ride that wave and reach down and play for him, you know, maybe that'll give them the little extra boost they need coming off of a rough weekend. And then Western and Omaha's kind of they've been kind of wishy-washy. They had that real long homestand, almost like a second pod this year where they didn't have to travel. And then they've kind of struggled a little bit here the last couple weeks in conference play. And Western's riding this wave of good play so far, and they kind of struggled a little bit this last weekend. It definitely wasn't their best hockey. But like I tweeted after the Friday game, good teams find ways to win games. When they're not playing their best game, or when the going's a little tougher than it has been, it's a sign of a good team to find ways to win those games. And they were able to do that Friday night. And I think the score doesn't really dictate how close that game was, because it definitely could have easily have been 6-3 the other way. Miami could have beaten Western. But Western was able to capitalize on more mistakes made by the Redhawks than they were able to capitalize on our own. Like, I think there was one play where literally the defenseman fell down, and it let the Western player get past him on the breakaway, and he scored. So things like that, I think, just kind of accumulate and snowball. And when you're a good team, you take advantage of those situations. So, again, not their best hockey that they're coming off of, but a good, solid effort nonetheless, and 6 more big conference points. So, and 6 more points up for grabs this weekend. So, it comes down to playing each game, taking each game individually, and hoping to play your best 60 minutes on that day. And Western can definitely continue to ride this wave. So I'm hoping for a sweep, just to kind of hopefully at least keep pace with North Dakota. You don't want that team getting too far ahead too early, especially with the back half that some of these schools have, where it's tough opponent, week in and week out. So hopefully that's kind of what we do, is we at least match what North Dakota does. And if North Dakota can lose and we win one, then we'll gain a little bit of ground. So that's my hope for the weekend anyway.
And that's what I think every team that's behind, whoever's in first place is hoping at least match, if not gain a little ground. That's all you can do. There is a reason they're in first place to a certain extent, but that also might become be because of them playing a little weaker teams to start, which that's every league. I'm not just saying North Dakota.
Right.
And you just got to keep pace and try and gain ground when you can.
And I think that's going to wrap it up for this week. Hopefully we'll be back next week. We'll see how everybody's health holds up here going into the winter.
Jesus, makes it sound like we're gonna die.
I mean, I don't know that we're gonna die, but definitely illnesses increases in the wintertime, being stuck inside and being in close proximity to everybody. So, if we happen to miss a week here and there, that's just kind of what happens.
Especially around the holidays, with a lot of teams being off, because I know our schedule is. What happened there? Is off until the 30th after this weekend.
Yeah, I think. Western has a weird schedule. Yeah, they finish this weekend, and then they don't play until the 29th at Michigan State, and then the 30th at Michigan, which I will be at both of those games, as well as the Western football bowl game on that Monday. So that will be a busy sports week. So we'll see what happens with recording an episode that week. And really the only games we'll have to talk about will be the Arizona State Colorado College series, since those are the only 2 schools playing on the 17th and 18th. And then, because next week we'll talk about this weekend again in Miami Mercyhurst. So we'll figure out what we'll want to do. Maybe we'll try and figure something out for that week.
Yeah. We'll do an off-air production meeting instead of an on-air production meeting.
That's probably a good idea. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up. Links are going to be in the description, as they usually are. Our Twitter handles are at the bottom of our pictures. Follow along if you want to. Email for the show is at glovesoff. That is our Facebook page that we're a part of. The email for this one is goalhornsandfightsongs@gmail.com, spelled out all the way. And that should wrap it up, I think. So thanks for tuning in if you did. Thanks for listening if you found it, made it this far. Have a good one, and enjoy some hockey.